9 spine-chilling Circle K stories revealed. Terrifying secrets of a haunted gas station. Melanie's heart raced as she glanced at the flickering fluorescent lights above her head, casting eerie shadows on the walls of the gas station. She had been working the night shift at the local Circle K for months now, but something felt different this evening. The chill that sneaked in through the cracks of the door seemed to whisper to her, teasing her fears as she pictured the whispers of missing persons rippling through her once close-knit community. The place was almost empty, save for the occasional car passing by on the slick road. Time dragged as she stocked shelves, her hands trembling slightly as she pushed back hair that clung to her sweaty forehead. Glancing at the security monitor, she caught her breath as she spotted a disheveled man lurking just outside the window, his eyes glinting with something predatory. "Get a grip, Mel," she muttered to herself, but that didn't ease the rising panic that clawed at her insides. That's when it happened. She turned to grab more snacks from the back room, and as she returned, her heart dropped. An odd assortment of items appeared on the shelves, a faded, scratched photograph of a family she didn't recognize, faces frozen in eerie smiles, and a doll with one eye that seemed to follow her. "What the hell?" she whispered, backing away, her pulse pounding in her ears. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Melanie pushed through the dread, convincing herself it was just a prank, maybe even a cruel joke from her coworkers. But soon, she realized the sense of wrongness creeping around her was too palpable to ignore. The man from outside reappeared, stepping inside the store, a chaotic blend of dirt and desperation clinging to his threadbare clothes. His gaze pierced through her, the air thick with his unsettling presence. "You should keep to yourself, Melanie," he hissed, sending icy fingers up her spine. With every passing day, the whispers grew louder, and Melanie couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Reports of disappearances intensified, the unease surrounding her like fog thickening into night. Neighbors smiled at her, but their eyes turned cold, shadows lurking just beneath the surface. Driven by a need to protect her children, she instinctively knew she had to find out what was truly happening. One fateful night brought her to a dusty corner of the back office. Under a stack of receipts, she unearthed a brittle newspaper clipping. "Local businessman linked to disappearances," it read, sending a jolt through her body. A name that rang with familiarity, a pillar of the town. The shock turned to dread as she pieced together the facade of kindness that masked something sinister. Just as truth clawed its way to her, a thunderous crash echoed through the store, sending Melanie's heart straight into her throat. The disheveled man stood there, eyes wild, a predator in a world of prey. "You should have stayed away, Melanie," he growled, his voice slithering into her mind like smoke tangled with nightmares. Was she just another name waiting to be lost in the town's dark history, or could she possibly uncover the truth before it consumed her whole? The shadows around her thickened, and the game was just beginning. Melanie's breath caught in her throat as she faced the man in the doorway. His appearance was a grotesque figure, partially illuminated by the flickering lights overhead, casting ghostly shadows across his visage. The wild edges of his unkempt hair swung like a curtain, concealing the madness behind his eyes. "Get away from me!" she shouted, the words escaping her lips before she could stop them. Panic ignited in her chest. The doll, still on the shelf, seemed to watch, its empty eye gleaming with a malevolent glint, mirroring her own rising terror. "Why didn't you listen, Melanie?" he snarled, taking a step forward. The unmistakable scent of decay drifted from him, mingling with the stale air of the store. She stumbled backward, feeling for the nearest aisle, her mind racing for an escape. "Please just leave," Melanie pleaded, desperately searching the corner of the room for something, anything that could help her. The figure took another step, and she could see the tautness in his muscles, every sinew coiling as if poised to strike. "You think it's just disappearances?" "No. It's far worse, he spat, an unsettling smile creeping across his face. You're digging where you shouldn't. Adrenaline surged, pushing her to dart behind the counter. She fumbled for the phone, her fingers trembling as she picked it up. With shaking hands, she dialed for help. Every ring felt like an eternity, her heart racing to drown out his voice, his threats that clawed at her sanity. They won't save you. No one in this town will, he hissed, inching around the counter. His eyes glinted with something dark. You think the news will protect you? You have no idea what powers lurk in the shadows. As he spoke, a noise erupted outside, screeching brakes and shouts that sent shards of hope slicing through her fear. The figure paused, his expression shifting to one of annoyance before his eyes narrowed. Another distraction. You really should have stayed away. His voice dripped with contempt, and he lunged forward just as Melanie dropped the phone and bolted for the back room. She dashed through the narrow hallway, heart pounding like a tribal drum in her ears. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and sweat, and her grip tightened around the doorknob. If she could just get to the storage room, maybe she could find a way out through the back exit. Melanie! He shouted, his voice a chilling echo. You can't hide from me. You're part of this now. Her mind wheeled as she yanked the door open and stumbled into the cramped space. Shelves towered around her, filled with boxes and bags, and one commit made her stop. What if the items here held another dark secret? She panted, casting frantic glances over her shoulder, praying he couldn't follow her in this tight space. Suddenly, she spotted something, a rusty crowbar strewn beneath a shelf. Gripping it tightly, she felt a flicker of bravery ignite. She would not go silently into the night. Just as she straightened, muscles coiling with determination, he filled the doorway, casting a looming shadow. No more games, Melanie, he hissed, his eyes narrowing in on the tools she clutched. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Desperation flooded her veins, and without thinking, she lunged forward, swinging the crowbar with every ounce of strength she had left. As it connected with his shoulder, a chilling scream sliced through the night. The man staggered back, but instead of retreating, he bared his teeth like a cornered beast, eyes aflame with fury. Foolish girl! He growled, a strange resonance underlying his voice. It was almost as if the shadows themselves twisted in his rising anger. Just as she thought she might have a chance, something shifted behind him, an opaque shadow melding into haste, moving closer toward her. Panic clawed at her throat. What else had she awakened in the dark corners of the Circle K? The answer hung in the air like a suffocating fog, waiting to engulf her. With a racing heart and anxious dread, she realized one truth: the nightmare was far from over, and time was running out. Melanie's heart pounded in her chest like a trapped animal as the man's face twisted in rage. She barely registered the shadow edging closer, creeping toward the narrow aisle that separated them. The walls felt as though they were closing in on her, and the air grew heavier, thick with dread. What did you do? He thundered, a low, guttural growl escaping his lips. At that moment, the shadow behind him became clearer, a swirling cloud of darkness that began to pulse and throb as if alive. It coiled around his legs, latching onto him like a parasite, its movements disturbing the air with a whispering hiss, drawing nearer to Melanie. She gripped the crowbar tightly, knuckles whitening as a feverish thought gnawed at her. Was this thing behind him the darkness he'd spoken of? What had she unwittingly unleashed? Stay away! She screamed, more a plea than a command. With the crowbar raised, she felt a surge of defiance. But even as she swung it again, desperation washed over her. This was a nightmare devoid of logic or reason. Then came a sound, a low, guttural growl from the shadow, resonating within the hollow spaces of the cluttered store. The man flinched, eyes darting uncertainly, and for the first time, uncertainty crept into his face. No, you shouldn't have done that. Melanie seized her moment, racing past him, the darkness pulling back momentarily as it shifted with a hiss. She burst into the store, her bare feet slapping against the cold linoleum, but she didn't dare look back. She needed to find a way out, somewhere, anywhere that felt safer than this suffocating hell. The exit loomed ahead, bathed in flickering fluorescent light, but the front door, a beacon of escape, remained locked, as if taunting her. Frantic, she turned, glancing around for other exits. A sense of hopelessness swelled within her. The back room was now a trap. "Melanie!" His voice boomed through the space, thick with anger and madness, echoing against the shelves of expired snacks and soda. "You might run, but you can't escape what you've awakened. I'll find you." She pressed against the shelf, eyes wide as she scanned the store. There was nowhere to hide. The walls seemed alive, pulsating with the echo of her muffled cries. Then the shadows surged, swirling toward her, forming tendrils that reached out hungrily. "Don't you understand?" he continued, his tone now lower, almost conspiratorial. "They crave fear. They thrive on it. You've given them a feast." His laughter was manic, reverberating in her mind as she darted to the broken aisles, dodging between toppled boxes. Panic surged as she realized the shadow was still encroaching, more tangible now, thicker and darker, a palpable force threatening to smother her. With the crowbar still clutched tightly, she stumbled to a corner of the store where the shelves were less dense, hoping to find some route of salvation. Breathing heavily, she could see the old job repair door leading to the storage area behind the gas pumps. It was a long shot, but it might lead to an exit. "Listen to the darkness, Melanie!" He taunted her from the front of the store, his voice crawling under her skin like 1,000 needles. "You don't have to fight. You can join it." And for a moment she hesitated, heart hammering in her chest. What was it he was really offering? Calmness amidst chaos? Or a deeper plunge into despair? Fueled by sheer determination, she broke into a sprint for the door. The sound of her heartbeat drowned out his laughter as the shadow lunged. She reached for the doorknob, praying it would turn, escape waiting just beyond it. But as she twisted the knob, it felt cold and unyielding. Panic swept through her again. The shadows lunged. Time slowed, a moment suspended in horror, as she realized the truth. She was inches from safety, but each second felt like an eternity. Then, all at once, the air shifted and darkness enveloped her. A chilling whisper echoed, "Welcome to your end." What would she choose in the face of such unearthly terror? Would she fight back or succumb? As tendrils snaked around her, Melanie realized. The real danger lurked not in the shadows or the madness of the man. It lay in the choices she still had to make, and the truths she had yet to uncover. With her mind racing, Melanie braced for the worst, questioning what was truly waiting for her beyond that door. The tendrils tightened around Melanie's waist, biting into her skin like frigid fingers. She gasped, a cold wave washing over her, as she could barely breathe under their grasp. The relentless embrace of the dark felt like it was pulling apart her very essence, tearing her away from reality, swallowing her fears whole. And then, just as she thought it would never end, the grasp loosened. She stumbled backward, falling against the shelf, her heart racing faster than ever. The store was silent, eerily still, as if holding its breath, waiting for her next move. "Don't resist," the man's voice echoed from somewhere beyond the looming shadows. "Embrace it. It's the only way you'll survive." She felt a stirring, a whisper in the depths of her mind, beckoning her to let go, to stop fighting against the tide. Shivering, she pushed herself up, scanning for an escape. The shelves seemed to shift under the flickering lights, inches from her face. A can of soda toppled over, clattering to the floor. Instantly, something stirred in the shadows, swirling closer, its presence an indistinct mass that began to morph into more recognizable shapes, hungry faces, mouths twisted in agony. "No!" she screamed, lunging for the old repair door that might lead to the outside world. The shadows whispered of despair, of failure. But she could not let them consume her. She slammed her palm against the door, hoping against hope that it would give way. Desperation clawed at her throat. Her fingers found something, a latch. She yanked at it, her heart racing in sync with the thunderous reverberations from the walls. The latch clicked as a bone-chilling laugh echoed around her, drowning her in dread. It suddenly swung open, revealing a darkened space beyond. She hesitated, glancing back at the chaotic scene in the store. The man emerged from the shadows, a wide grin cresting his face, disturbing in its delight. "You can't escape what you've awakened," he taunted, a glimmer of amusement igniting in his eyes. "It'll only get worse if you stay." Fueled by terror, she stepped into the void. The door slammed shut behind her with an ominous thud, isolating her in darkness. Panic surged again as she felt her way through, the stark absence of light leaving her disoriented. A soft hiss filled the air, echoing through the empty space, growing louder, morphing into a guttural growl. Melanie turned sharply, adrenaline surging. There was no turning back now. Suddenly, the hint of a dim light flickered ahead, guiding her forward. With each step, the air grew heavier, a suffocating weight pulling at her chest. Melanie aspired to believe it was a way out, but the shadows encroached, whispering promises of fears yet unfathomed. She felt its icy tendrils graze her thoughts, seeking her deepest insecurities, her failures, her fears, her regrets. "Don't let them in," she whispered desperately, clenching her fists. She pressed onward, heart pounding. Then, as she reached the light, it burst open, blasting into a room flooded with fluorescent hues. But something was wrong. The walls felt sticky, as if they had absorbed years of anguish. The air was thick with a sweet, sickly scent. She stepped inside, her instincts screaming at her. There, in the center of the room, a circle formed by old, tattered gas station uniforms and mystical symbols pulsated with energy, as if alive. Whispers echoed from the walls, the collective voices of shadows long trapped within their confines. "What is this place?" she breathed, a mixture of fear and intrigue surging through her veins. She had ventured deeper into darkness than she could have ever imagined. And just then, the remnants of the man's laughter filled the air, chilling her to the bone. "You took your first steps into the true pit of despair. Now will you rise against the unknown, or will you succumb?" As she lingered at the threshold, Melanie felt a sudden pull from within the circle. Shadows twisted and coiled, threatening to engulf her whole. Would she fight or join the darkness that beckoned? In that moment, a choice hung heavy in the air. And the terrifying truth began to unravel around her: the real nightmare had just begun. The air crackled with a sinister energy. Melanie stood frozen, eyes wide as the whispers intensified, swirling around her like a storm. Panic surged through her, demanding she flee. But the pull from within the circle beckoned, tugging at her consciousness, tempting her with promises of answers, of power. "Join us," they murmured. "Be part of the truth. Face your fears head on." She shook her head violently, trying to drown out the cacophony. Tears blurred her vision. The shadows danced closer, their elongated fingers reaching out, brushing against her mind like frigid blades. Every contact sent ice through her veins, taking root in her soul. "Stop it!" she screamed, the sound echoing against the sticky walls that seemed to absorb her cries. "I don't want any part of this." But her resistance only fueled their fervor. The circle pulsed brighter, its energy thrumming with an otherworldly rhythm that resonated deep within her. Melanie stumbled back, her heels striking a pile of old uniforms, sending them fluttering like disheveled ghosts. Each uniform bore a name tag, faded and yellowed, a chilling reminder of the identities trapped within these walls. "Help us!" a disembodied voice seeped from the uniforms, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. "We've been here too long, you must join us to escape." Sickening dread coiled in her stomach. Melanie could feel the loose tethers of her reality fraying, fear creeping in, covering her like a shroud. She caught glimpses of their faces, lost, anguished, pleading. The man's laughter echoed again, cruel and mocking. "They crave your essence, Melanie. You've been chosen. You could help them help yourself if only you're willing to embrace it." Deep inside, she felt a flicker of doubt ignite. Embrace what? Darkness? Despair? Would surrendering to the shadows mean she would finally escape from her own fears and failures, or would it seal her fate among them forever? "No!" she shouted defiantly, driving her fists into her sides. But her heart raced with uncertainty. The shadows laughed, a cacophony of dark amusement as they stretched from the walls, enacting the battle of her will. Taking a labored breath, she turned and faced the pulsating circle. It shimmered invitingly, filled with shadows writhing in a chaotic dance. Strangely hypnotic, the movement drew her closer. She felt its warmth against her chilled skin. Then a memory flashed in her mind of her parents arguing, of being abandoned in the dark, of feeling worthless and forgotten. The shadows pulled at her again, exposing her vulnerability. They understood her, they knew her pain. "Let us in," they insisted, their voices a soft hiss that enveloped her. "You can find solace with us." "Stop!" she cried, shaking her head as violent thoughts thrashed inside her skull. With every moment, the weight grew heavier, pushing her closer to the center of the circle. The fluorescent glows surged brighter, blinding her momentarily. Then, just as she wavered, a figure stepped forth from the shadows, a woman, pale and ethereal, her eyes filled with an unbearable sadness. "You have a choice, Melanie," she spoke, her voice like breaking glass. "Join them, or break free." A flicker of recognition sparked. It was the spirit of someone lost, another victim of the gas station's curse. Without thinking, Melanie sprinted to the opposite side of the room, backtracking into the gloom. She needed to escape. A desperate need for survival thrilled her. The shadows screamed in furious protest, their grasp stretching out, attempting to reclaim her. Frantically, she pushed through an adjoining door, gasping for air as she barreled into a narrow corridor lined with flickering lights. Yet she felt them pursuing, the darkness nipping at her heels, desperate to pull her back into the maddening dance of despair. "Find the exit, Melanie! Hurry!" The woman's voice echoed behind her, urging her forward. Breathless, she raced down the corridor, as images of her past clamored, swirling in a whirlpool of dread. But just before she reached another door, the shadows surged ahead, blocking her path, forming a wall of writhing darkness that swallowed the light whole. Melanie skidded to a halt, heart hammering in her chest. She could feel their hunger, the insatiable urge to drag her back into their depths. Panic washed over her as she realized, if she didn't find a way through them, she might never escape. And then, as if sensing her hesitation, they whispered once more, "This isn't the end." It's only just begun. What was waiting for her beyond that door? Was there truly a chance for salvation, or was there something even worse lurking in the shadows? The shadows shifted, their grip tightening around Melanie like a vice. She stood paralyzed, the weight of fear pushing her to the ground. Her breath came in ragged gasps, desperation flaring as the wall of darkness pulsed before her. Their whispers grew into a howling storm, a symphony of anguish that made her skin crawl. "Join us," they crooned, their voices layered like 1,000 lost souls. "You're one of us now. Embrace it. Embrace the truth." Melanie's heart raced as memories mingled with their insistent calls. She saw her childhood home, the echo of slamming doors, the silent screams for someone to notice her pain. "No!" she choked out. "I wouldn't let you take me." In a surge of adrenaline, she pushed forward, her feet pounding against the cold floor, racing toward the darkness that threatened to consume her. But the shadows surged closer, tendrils of despair wrapping around her ankles, pulling her back. "Stay with us," they glided seamlessly, intertwining themselves around her legs like hungry serpents. The whispers beckoned, promising to ease her hurt, to wash away the echoes of her past. But Melanie understood their lullaby was a trap, a deceitful blend of longing and despair. Sweat dripped down her forehead, stinging her eyes, but she couldn't give in now. Gritting her teeth, she threw her weight against the nearest door, digging her palms into the frame. It creaked and shuddered but held firm. "Break free!" The ethereal woman who guided her whispered again, her voice barely louder than the chaos of shadows. "You have the strength within you." With renewed fervor, Melanie turned back to the swirling darkness. "I am not yours!" she screamed, the words tearing from her throat like a battle cry. She summoned every shred of resistance as she fought against the haunting figures, picturing the life she longed for: freedom, clarity, love. The shadows recoiled slightly, their grip loosening, but they didn't let go. She could sense their fury, an angry tide crashing against her willpower. Then she noticed something: the shimmering edge of the circle, pulsating like a beating heart beneath the dark surface. Was that the exit? The idea flickered, daring her to consider. If she could reach it, Melanie lunged, pushing herself forward once more. Her fingers brushed against the edge, the sensation tingling as if the energy zapped through her. In that split second, she felt a surge. Strength. Clarity flooded her mind. "I will not be your puppet," she bellowed, as the circle rippled dangerously, unleashing a violent shudder that fractured the darkness around her. The shadows screamed, twisting and writhing, retreating in a frenzy as if Melanie's defiance burned them. Hope glimmered in the chaos, igniting her determination further. "Go! Keep going!" the woman urging her forward as the shadows faltered, momentarily weakened. With every ounce of her being, Melanie pushed against the circle, tearing through it like breaking glass. She felt a rush of cold wind around her, a desperate embrace as she finally escaped the clutches of despair. But as she stumbled into the new space, breathless and shaken, the air thickened again. The familiar figures of the gas station reemerged in the dim light, their eyes hollow, their faces lined with sorrow. "Welcome back," a voice broke the silence, chilling her to the bone. This time, she wasn't lost, she was trapped. With her heart pounding against her ribcage, Melanie locked her eyes on them, searching for a way out. There had to be a path through, a secret she hadn't uncovered yet. But then she noticed each face wore an expression of dread. They were not free, and they were becoming desperate. "Don't look at them," the woman's voice echoed, warning hers. "They'll draw you back. You're the key." Melanie spun, grasping for a way to rally her strength as darkness inched closer again, pulsing with inescapable hunger. But what lay ahead? The answer awaited in the unyielding depths, a darkness yet untapped, and she felt the shadows beckoning with a sinister allure. What secrets were they hiding, and could she resist their call, or would she, too, become another lost soul, wandering the gas station forever? The air crackled with tension, each heartbeat deafening in its singularity. Melanie's vision swam, the faces of the customers flickering before her like faulty neon lights. She felt their hollow stares bore into her, drawing her deeper into a well of despair. The gas station had always felt eerie, but this was different, drenched in a feeling that threatened to envelop her whole. "No, not again," she whispered, panic creeping back like icy hands wrapping around her throat. The shadows were closer now, their growls mingling with the desperate murmurs of the figures around her. She knew instinctively she couldn't stay. Not here. "Find the key, Melanie!" The woman's voice echoed through the space, sharp against the churning darkness. "You must find it before they consume you." "What key?" Melanie screamed, her voice barely escaping her lips as the shadows darted around her, eager mouths opening to their ghostly cause. The bizarre lighting darkened, and a sickly sweet smell filled the air, a scent of decay laced with something familiar, something she remembered in nightmares. The figures before her moved in unison, their movements jerky and unnatural, forming a circle. They whispered secrets she couldn't understand, fragments of lives once lived twisted through time. She caught snippets of painful memories, love lost, betrayals, old wounds. Each word a dagger to her heart. "Fight it! Don't listen!" the ethereal woman cried, her voice cutting through the fabric of despair. But then Melanie noticed a glimmer beneath the pile of scattered debris on the floor just beyond the circle of shadowy figures. It pulsed with warmth, a stark contrast to the cold dread surrounding her. With no time to think, she made a run for it. "Stay with us," they chanted, melodic yet chilling, desperation entwined in their song. The shadows lashed out, hands reaching, trying to pull her back to their prison. Melanie felt their grasp tighten, weighty limbs tugging at her until she was nearly on her knees. She summoned everything in her to fight against their pull. "I want to become one of you," she shouted defiantly, the words igniting a flicker of resolve deep within. With one last, furious effort, she broke free, sprinting toward the glimmering object lying on the floor. Her breath came in ragged gasps, fear fueling her speed. Each step felt like wading through molasses, but the light shone brighter, becoming her beacon. She reached down into the dark, fingers grazing cool metal, the key. Its rough surface sent a surge of hope pulsing through her veins. But the moment she touched it, the shadows shrieked, their anguished cries rising to a deafening pitch. They recoiled as if burned, the light from the key illuminating their horrific forms, wilted faces, eyes full of a longing that froze Melanie's core. "Use it!" the woman urged, her voice vibrating with urgency. "You are the key! Unleash it!" With trembling hands, Melanie held it high. "Get back!" she screamed, feeling the power coursing through her like a live wire. The key glimmered brighter, illuminating the darkest corners of the gas station. And then, in an explosive burst, the shadows flinched, their sinister whispers turning into malevolent screams, echoing off the walls. Yet, the faces around her twisted in agony, darkness swirling around them, trying desperately to pull her back. She looked into their eyes, pleading, haunted expressions of those who were lost. "No!" she cried, pulling away. Melanie knew this couldn't end badly for her, she had to escape. But a sudden chill seeped into her bones as she perceived the truth: there wouldn't be any escape without consequence. "What have I unleashed?" The shadows writhed and flared, and Melanie's hand grew heavy with the weight of the key. Darkness trembled in the wake of its light, but it also beckoned, whispering secrets she hadn't yet dared to understand. It was then that realization settled deep within her. A price awaited, a blood price that would likely haunt her forevermore. "What have I unleashed?" she gasped, breath catching in her throat. The answer loomed just beyond her grasp, lurking in the edges of her consciousness. Would she uncover the truth or be consumed, just like the lost souls surrounding her who begged for release? The choice gnawed at her, as she felt the air thicken with ominous weight. All she knew was she was standing at the brink of a revelation that could destroy everything or free them all. But the deeper she dived into the void, the more perilous the truth became. What ancient horror awaited her next? The echoes of the shadows clung to her as she wavered, key held high like a torch against the overwhelming dark. Their wails morphed into a cacophony of despair, yet beneath it lurked something foul, a voice laden with promises. Melanie stumbled back, her heart pounding ferociously in her chest. "Release us!" the figures begged, their sunken eyes shimmering with a desperation that twisted her insides. They were souls trapped in this endless twilight, their pain palpable. With every tick of the clock, their cries pushed deeper into her skin, wrapping around her bones. "Leave me alone!" she shouted, but her protest mingled with fear and doubt. Each gasp drew them closer, their twisted forms rearing in anticipation of the fate she still struggled to comprehend. "Do it!" the woman urged again, her voice solidified like stone amidst the chaos. "You can set them free, but the cost is yours to bear." Melanie's hand trembled. A price? What kind of price? Would it be her sanity? Her life? The air grew heavier, pressing on her lungs like the weight of 1,000 lives. But she didn't have time to contemplate. The shadows surged again, their faces contorted in anguish, and a dark hunger filled the space, snatching at her resolve. Gripping the key tighter, she stepped backward, her mind racing. "What if I don't want to pay any price?" she thought. But deep down, she knew she was already caught in their web, tangled in threads of fate woven long ago. The gas station wasn't just a waypoint. It was a graveyard for lost souls, a haven for secrets buried so deep they echoed through time. "Focus! Remember your strength!" The spectral woman hovered nearby, her form radiant against the dark tide. Melanie couldn't look away, drawn by the fierce intensity in her gaze. Taking a breath, she shouted, "I will not be afraid. I will not be a prisoner." With that declaration, she plunged the key into the murky depth of the shadows. A blinding light erupted, splintering the darkness into shards. The moment it made contact, an unknown force surged back, like a tidal wave sweeping across the floor. Suddenly everything froze. The figures halted mid-struggle, their haunting cries dying to a whisper. Melanie felt her skin crawl, terror lacing through her veins. A darkness still clawed at her shadows, unwilling to relinquish its grasp, but she pushed forward, the key glimmering defiantly. "I command you! Release them!" she screamed, feeling the surge of power like the crack of thunder. The shadows recoiled, deforming violently, their anguished forms spiraling outward as they wailed. No! You can't! They echoed in a collective dread as the light consumed them, tearing them apart like fragile paper caught in a firestorm. But as they disintegrated, Melanie felt the cost settle on her like a dark cloak. As the last shadow cried its final lament, a shudder coursed through her veins. The very air thickened, electricity crackling with sinister promise. Had she freed them, or had she only unleashed something far worse? A deep voice erupted from the void left behind, low and raspy, chilling her bones. You've opened the door, child, and now I shall come for you. A suffocating dread seized her as the room began to tremble, the gas station shaking like a marionette caught in the grip of a wild storm. The light dimmed, shadows creeping back, weaving through the cracks like tendrils of smoke curling in the dim afterglow. And with it, a new fear gripped her. What now awaited her beyond the threshold she had crossed? The shadows churned, swirling around Melanie as she staggered back, heart racing. The tremors still rattled the gas station structure, echoing her own panic. From within the darkness, whispers hissed and hissed again, a steady stream of threats wrapped in promises that made her skin crawl. I've unleashed them, what have I done? Her mind raced. The visage of the spectral woman dissolved into the black smoke, leaving Melanie alone with the darkness that seemed to breathe deeper, hungrier now. Each rustle felt like fingers brushing her skin, a cold caress that sent a jolt through her. She squared her shoulders, trying to summon courage against the unseen menace. The key felt heavier in her hand, a burden rather than a weapon. She swallowed hard, throat dry, every instinct screaming to flee. But she couldn't abandon those souls, she'd made that choice. The voice returned, deeper now, lingering. You think yourself a savior, but you only opened Pandora's box. The feed of shadows is relentless, and now, they need a vessel. Melanie gasped, eyes wide. A vessel? What did that mean? Panic gnawed at her gut. She glanced at the exits, each silhouette cloaked in a darkness that reached out, ready to engulf her if she dared move. Surely, I can stop this, she whispered to herself, searching for an escape. The words sounded thin, even in her head. Every shadow reminded her of the faces twisted in agony, asking for release. Yet now, it seemed they only vied for something more sinister. The air thickened around her, saturated with anguish. A light flickered above, dimming with each passing second. She took a step toward it, desperate for a way out, her breath quickening. The shadows shifted. They whispered louder now, taunting her. Come to us, become one of us, your fear nourishes us. They flickered, their pressure surrounding her like an embrace. There's no help here, only despair. No! She cried, the word bursting from her throat. I want to be your puppet. She tightened her grip on the key and thrust it forward, channeling all her fear into a spark of rebellion. The light flared, pushing against the darkness, as if seeking entry back into her world. A flash stunned her. In the split second, she caught sight's brief images of the lost souls again, their faces fading into ash, whispers merging into a roar. Save us, save yourselves, they screamed as the shadows writhed in an agonizing dance. Melanie threw her head back, the key radiating a blinding light. But instead of collapsing back into shadows, new forms emerged, twisted shapes crawling from the depths, growing from the very darkness she had sought to confront. Their mouthless screams were like dagger tips against her sanity. And then she felt them. A chill wrapped around her ankles, gripping tighter like chains of ice. She fought, struggling to pull them free. But the more she resisted, the stronger they became, locking into her very essence, weaving through her thoughts. Join us! They howled, their voices merging into a monstrous cacophony. Melanie felt the pull, an irresistible tide dragging her under. Her heart raced, helpless against the inevitable. Was this the price she would pay? A moment of silence fell. All was still. The only sound was her erratic breathing mixing with the low hum of lingering shadows. Then she noticed something, a shadow among shadows, watching her, waiting. It was larger than the others, a presence more solid, devoid of the anguish that had choked the air moments before. It hovered, observing her with an unyielding gaze, its form indistinct yet commanding in its silence. Child, you've invited me, and the air thickened. She felt the shadows tighten around her throat, the weight of their expectations a solid chest against her chest. Just one decision could change everything. Would she succumb, or find a way to fight? As the darkness shimmered with anticipation, creeping, reaching, Melanie's final connection with the daylight dwindled. It all hung on a knife's edge, teetering precariously. But in the chaos, a sliver of hope flickered somewhere deep within her. Could she pull free from the abyss? And then came the question that would change everything. What if I wanted them to join me instead? The shadows recoiled, for a brief moment stilled by her unexpected defiance. Melanie's heart raced as her mind grasped the gravity of her question. Could she harness this energy to free herself and the trapped souls? What did you say? The figure murmured, its voice smooth like silk yet riddled with sinister undertones. Hazarding a glance at the shadows, she gathered her resolve. What if I wanted them to join me? To break free together? Her voice faltered, yet she pressed on. What if we combine our strength? A ripple of wind twisted through the shadows, a soundless exchange among them. Gasping breaths filled the air, the stench of decay fading for just a heartbeat as if weighing her proposition. Together? Their voices fluttered, wavering like the branches of a tree swaying in a storm. Why should we trust you? Because we're meant to be free, she shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. You're not just shadows. You were once people, like me. We lost each other in this darkness. With each word, Melanie felt the weight of their sorrow pressing against her. Merging understanding and compassion washed through her, brightening the trembling light of the key. We can fight this despair together. We can find a way out of this twisted nightmare. A haze of uncertainty enveloped the shadows, each face flickering with hints of recognition. But the larger figure loomed before her, its gaze penetrating, assessing her sincerity. You speak of unity and desperation. But do you understand the cost? I'm willing to pay it, she proclaimed, the trembling edge of fear morphing into fierce conviction. Just tell me how. If you're willing to break free, work with me. Together we can banish this torment. The shadows shifted, murmurs of curiosity intertwining amidst lingering doubt. You think unity can drown the darkness? Whispered the larger figure. What makes you believe it is strong enough? Melanie clenched the key tighter, its luminescence flickering in response. Because I believe. We've all suffered lost something precious. But we can create a new beginning if we trust each other. The darkness trembled as the faces around her glimmered with flickers of something she rarely saw in this realm: hope. A deeper rumble echoed through the air, and the shadows inched closer, acknowledging her proposal, yearning to unite against the confines of despair. Then let us form a bond, the larger figure commanded. We shall stand together. But know this, the path is never easy. Anything, Melanie exclaimed, the words exploding from her. We'll confront whatever lurks in the shadows. But we must leave this place. Then your wish is granted, it hissed, and with a sudden gust, shadows surged outward, coiling tightly around her form. For a split second confusion gripped her. But then the warmth of unity pulsed, washing through her like a tide of nostalgia, a kinsfolk embrace spreading strength through her limbs. Embrace the darkness. The larger figure howled, and the shadows began to swirl in a vortex of roiling energy. The cacophony of myriad voices intermingled, chanting, laughing, murmuring at once. As the key pulsed in her grip, its light began to spread outward, illuminating the dark, casting a shimmering web of connection that wove through each spectral soul. The darkness twisted, almost ferociously caught in its decision. And then it happened: a surge of blinding light erupted around her, crashing into the chords of darkness, and dispersing them into twinkling specters. Melanie felt weightless, soaring, as the energies entwined, combining forces with an electric surge of life. In those fleeting moments, she glimpsed full live smiles, laughter, bleeding into warmth that soaked into the void. They transformed, rising above the gas station's haunting shadows, joining her in a dance of liberation. Together, they shouted, the chorus ringing triumphantly through the air. It became a whirlwind enveloping the gas station, dissolving its suffocating grip. Freedom! They chanted, as the gas station exploded in blinding radiance, the darkness swirling, battling against their ascendant energy. Then, just as the shadows threatened to claw at her joy, the light enveloped her in a warm embrace. Like stars bursting in the dark, a cascade of shining figures shot into the night sky, their whispers turning from anguished cries into laughter of release. Melanie's eyes brimmed with tears as the realization washed over her they were free. With a deep, resonating thud, the gas station shattered into remnants flickering and dissipating against the night. The familiar heat of daylight kissed her skin, the sun igniting across the horizon. And as she raised the key, now glowing softly, worlds collided into a single moment. Past, present, and future flashed by her as a comforting whisper danced on the wind. "Thank you, Melanie. You've set us free." With newfound strength coursing through her veins, she took a breath filled with hope, scanning the horizon. The world felt different now, alive and vibrant, stretching wide before her. She had faced the darkness and emerged renewed. As the echoes of lost souls danced with whispers of newfound life, Melanie's heart swelled with purpose. There would always be shadows, but she knew now they didn't have to claim her, nor anyone again. In that moment, she understood the true essence of freedom lay in the choice to unite, to resist despair, and to rise together from darkness into the light. Hit that subscribe button now. You need to subscribe immediately to not miss out on more heart-pounding stories. Smash the like button to pump up the algorithm, and keep the chills coming. I want to hear your theories and reactions about this finale, so flood the comments, let's chat. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need this electrifying conclusion. Your support makes a huge difference.